Look at my
That felt
face,
too.
Jack. That is a lot of information. This is Money Scheme Official, episode 5. And you can go ahead and just talk to the audience for a second and introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So, hello everyone. So, my name is Jack Montgomery. I've known this man here for quite a few years now. How many has it been? Like probably 4 or 5 at this point.
4 or 5,
Something
yeah.
around. But yeah, I'm a freelance audio engineer. Right now, that's kind of been put on hold. Unfortunately, I'm an infantryman in the U.S. Army right now. Airborne in Fort Bragg, and hopefully go in Special Forces here in a couple of years. But that's besides the point. Before all that, I was in college doing audio engineering on the side. I was self-taught by the time I got to the program. Ended up kind of just using them for their equipment. To throw free projects to people, be like, hey, come record with me as long as your song does these 3 bullet points I got to do on my assignment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't play any instruments, unfortunately, but I do have a vocal background. I love songwriting. I love just working with all sorts of new talent.
What do you go by? Do you have like a business name? Branding?
Yeah, so back before COVID, when I was still active, I was just going by more or less just myself, because I didn't have the space to set up a dedicated studio. I was working out of my apartment at the time.
Yeah.
So it was more or less just direct word of mouth. But once I get more permanent and I have my studio set up that I'm always working up and I'm always planning on, I've been planning on like 5 or 6 years in the making at this point.
Yeah.
I'll probably go by the name Montgomery Audio. That's
Okay.
kind of the name that I have right now. I had a couple names listed on like ASCAP and some other services under a different name, but considering that I put everything on hold for a couple of years going into the Army, I don't feel like those things are really relevant anymore, so I'm just going to start fresh when the time is right.
Yeah, so what happened to the name Mr. Sixa? Was that just a YouTube thing, or?
Oh yeah, so that was my original, I mean, still is my email address, mr6@gmail.com. That's been my handle. Six has been my handle for just basically my whole life on anything online related. So I was running with that basically the entire time. But I don't know. Like I said, I think when I get everything back up and running, I'm going to start fresh with a new name and kind of new direction, new vision. But I probably will keep that for the time being. Definitely for the time being. But when the time comes, I'll probably switch over to a new email.
Engineering.
So real quick, for people to know, the difference between an audio engineer and a producer is that an audio engineer doesn't necessarily make beats. As far as hip hop is concerned, they don't work on the production per se. They don't add musicality, or they don't play instruments. They don't add MIDI, things like that. I mean, they can, but typically an audio engineer's focus is to do the the recording, mixing, and mastering of the song. So that may involve rearranging parts here and there. I have obviously music's a huge part of my life, so I have a taste that I like to implement into the songs as well. So sometimes that's involved, talking with the artist, hey, what if we rearrange this part? What if we add in this part here? So it's kind of quasi-producing, but I've never really stepped full force into the beat making side of things. I'd like to someday. I have a lot of virtual instruments, but I don't know, kind of orchestral and soundtrack stuff has always interested me more, like ambient stuff. So if I were to do anything, it would probably be in that realm rather than like straight up hip hop beats, although I love hip hop beats. So how I got started was,
yes, sir.
Everyone at that kind of 16 to 20-year-old age range, they're trying to figure out, what they want to do. They want something that's unique and something that they want to do rather than just what society has laid out for them. Yeah. So that's kind of where I was at. I was huge into music at the time, obviously, still am. And I've always been someone who is really like tech savvy and tech focused. I was always a huge gamer, still am. Like I built my own PCs. I did all the stuff. Like I was the go-to guy for that. Yeah. And I was like, well, there has to be some way to get that out of the music industry without being a performer or a singer or a rapper or anything. So that's kind of the way that I took it. And it worked out because engineering is a very technical topic just as much as it's an artistic one. So depending on how you want to approach it, you can get super surgical and scientific with it, as well as you can get super vibey and just instinctual with it. So it's constantly going back and forth between the two sides of your brain, knowing, okay, well, there's a problem frequency right here. You know, the scientific part of me is telling me that. And now we have to analyze if the changes I'm making that are good on paper actually sound good. Do they contribute to the vibe of the song? And then, you know, it's one of those things, you're working, you get 200 ideas as they come to you. It's hard to be successful as an engineer without being super creative at the same time. In stereo, there's more than enough space to make everything sit where it needs to sit, that you can hear everything individually.
Okay.
That's just my take, but I've never dabbled in straight up surround Dolby Atmos, anything like that, 7.1. It exists for music. It's very rare in my experience. It's more of a thing like movies and television.
What is hip hop to you?
Media answer is hip hop is a derivative form of jazz and rock music that rose to prominence in the late 80s and continues to arguably the most popular type of music today. The nuanced version is that it is kind of the state of the culture of youth. It's driven by the youth, but it's not exclusive to the youth. They influence it the most because they're the ones coming out with it and setting the trends. You don't usually see a lot of older artists setting trends as much as new and up-and-comers do. But it doesn't mean that the people who have been in the game for a long time are in any way irrelevant. Everyone knows that that's not true.
Or how do you register as an audio engineer?
So there is what I think you're talking about is like ASCAP and EMI and songwriting organizations and royalty collection agencies. So that is a way. It's not necessarily so. In my experience, audio engineers get paid in one of a couple ways. The first way is they do what's called a work for hire agreement, which basically means like, hey, you're going to pay me a flat fee to work on this project. I have no rights to it. I can't put my name anywhere on it. You're just paying me a check. I'm working on it. That's it. However, there's another thing. It's kind of putting yourself down as like a credited songwriter on the song, or put people down as engineers. You can kind of label people however you want now these days, and you can get a cut of the royalties of the song that way. Some people do a mixture of two. Some people who have been in the game long enough, they're just full-time employed by either a label or a studio, and they just get paid a salary.
That's true.
So it's kind of like work for hire. But as far as freelance, I've done both. I've done work for hire as well as been on the royalty payments. For that, you typically have to go through the royalty collection agencies like BMI or ASCAP or a songwriting royalty agency, so that you can get the mechanical royalties that you are deserved. I went to school at Western Washington University in Washington State, up in the Pacific Northwest is within it, but you can also kind of make your own classes, and you pitch to professors, and you're like, hey, I have this idea for this project I'm going to do, you know, it has this, this, and this to it, and they're like, all right, you know, I think that's worth 2 credits. So I did a lot of that. That's how I did an executive album that I produced. So I executive produced it, which means I worked on everything from, I basically did everything on the album except make the beats and rap. Everything else
you recorded.
Really me. Did all the booking, all the recording, all the mixing, all the mastering, all the negotiations between everyone. Direction. I even was on Photoshop making the fucking like designs for the covers and everything. Final project, and it was my roommate that I was in with at the time, so it was kind of a passion project. Still holds up to this day. I listen to it every now and then. I just give like pat myself on the back. I'm like, you know what? All those hours you spent in your bedroom with those monitors, mixing that with those headphones, that really, you know, paid off. Same, but like you get to a point in the song that you worked on, and as the artist, maybe the only thing you can think of is like, man, it took me like 25 takes to get this one word right. Or as me, the engineer, I'll be listening to a part and I'll be like, man, I remember drawing in the automation to this point, and I remember this second how, you know, this does this and that does that, and it took me forever to figure out the way I wanted it, and now it sounds good, and I'm finally so happy that it worked out. That's how I think of things when I listen to songs that I worked on. All I can think of is the process that I spent working on it, and it's like I'm there again working on the song. Or sometimes, hopefully this happens very rarely, but you'll get to a point in the song where you listen to it and I'm like, man, I wish I could go back and change it.
Yeah.
And you point it out to someone, they're like, I can't even hear what you're talking about. You're like, but don't you mean like this is happening? Why can't you hear that? And they're like, it sounds great. You're worrying too much, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so that's how I am.
Tell us the name of that album you executive produced and where we can find it.
So that album is called Full Bloom. It'll be on major streaming platforms, including YouTube, assuming his DistroKid info is still good.
Yeah.
And it's by an artist named T Bloom. It's not, I don't remember if it's T hyphenated Bloom or if it's T space Bloom.
Yeah.
But the guy's name is Tanner Bloom, so he goes by the name of T Bloom. So I executive produced that album. There's a couple other mixtapes he has that we did very, very early on, back when I was still learning, on SoundCloud, I believe. Also under the name T Bloom, Project TB3 and Project Broke Joke. Those are not nearly as good as the album. Obviously, from a technical and songwriting standpoint, they're much more basic and kind of like bedroom mixtape level quality. I was still learning on Reaper at the time. It was not that long after we did those really, really early songs when I was literally doing it for the first time.
Me too.
You guys were the first people that I ever had to record, and I was like learning on the fly. When you're learning on the fly, I guess you're more likely to take risks and try things because you don't know what's what. So you're just like, let's try this, see how it sounds, let's try that. If you know kind of what the rules are and how people do things, you're more likely to stick to that, and you may not venture outside your comfort zone. I guess it's like cooking. Like if you don't know how to do a specific recipe, you might like try something crazy and just like add in a random ingredient that no one's thought of before, and it makes it way better, versus being like, well, you know, the cooks in London at the Michelin star restaurants would never do that because this does that, so I could never. So you kind of box yourself in. But at the same time, those rules are there for a good reason. Don't ignore things just because they're there.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of being mentored to do more research and see and pay attention to what other people are doing. But I'm like, dude, I have my own style because I feel like I'm stealing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I know what you said too to me. It was like, well, if you really like how someone does something, try to emulate that. And I like kind of do that to a degree, but at the end of the day, it's like I just grab the shit and do it, dog. Like I don't give a fuck. Like, because once I start trying to educate myself on it and like see who's doing it, and it's too much information for me. Like I just need to do it and create my own flavor, however you want to say it, my own style or whatever. And as time goes on, I'll dial everything in, you know. So that's just how I think of it.
Yeah, I can relate to that to an extent. As an engineer, we have expectations on how the song needs to sound, and some of those expectations are based in like reality. Like it has to be this level of loudness. The vocals more or less have to sound like this. You can't come with something out of left field. I mean, you can obviously, but typically you will throw people off if you come at them with a soundscape that is radically different than what people are used to hearing on the radio. And it's not that how the songs are mixed nowadays are bad, or that they are derivative, or that they're lazy or undercooked, and that there's no true artistry or, you know, complexion in mixing nowadays. Quite the opposite. But
people are used to a certain sound.
Yeah, people expect a certain sound, and there's nothing wrong with that. Usually that's a very high quality sound.
So
you need
to
figure out a way to implement your own style on top of that. So you need to meet the baseline criteria, and then you also need to add your own flair on top of that. Some people, well, here's the thing though. Your own flair is only as good as far as it doesn't interfere with what the artist wants for their song. A lot of engineers and producers have this complex about them that it's their song versus the artist's song. And while yes, you can put your own flavor onto it because you're kind of cooking it up, you're driving the ship, so to say. It's important to remember what the artist wants for their song, because it's going to be their baby. They have to live with it forever, just as much as you do. So if you are having this attitude about yourself that, well, the artist wants this, this, and this, but I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to make it sound like if I was the artist and this is my song. They may not be on the same level as you, which is fine. They might not have the same vision for the song as you do. And it's sometimes difficult because sometimes you as an engineer may have an informed opinion about something that you think is the right way to do something. And you might think that the way that the artist wants you to do a portion of the song is worse than your idea. You might think, well, this guy wants me to have it this way, but I don't think that sounds good. And I just don't get why he can't understand that. It sounds bad. But at the end of the day, you just have to give them what they want, whether or not it sounds good to you. You know, you have your own standards that you try your best to uphold, but if they want something that is creatively bankrupt or it just sounds weird, they're like, I want you to distort my vocals like this. And they play this song for you that you think sounds terrible, you hate it. You still have to do it. So like at times like that, you just think, okay, this person has fans, they like what they have to release, so give them what they want. Like you don't have to try and make every song like a Grammy-winning cinematic experience like Astroworld or something. Just give the artist what they want. You're probably going to save yourself stress in the end anyway.
What's some things you could tell other audio engineers that could help them, maybe if they're just starting off or anything, or just any advice in general?
Obviously there's the advice like get a mentor or stuff, but to be truth be told, I never had a mentor ever. I still don't. My mentor was combing through forums night after night, watching endless amounts of YouTube videos on mixing tutorials from different people and putting together the common threads that I kept hearing over and over. If you don't have access to mentorship or people that can teach you well, because you have to vet your mentors too. You can't just let anyone say, oh yeah, I know how to do this shit, and then like you have to listen to their stuff, be like, okay, I actually trust this person's opinion. Because
my mentor has amazing album. He has an amazing album and he's coming out with a great one.
Good. So if you don't have that, then it's an uphill battle and you have to spend a lot of time as a spectator or a tourist just looking things up, going on to what was originally Gear Sluts. I think it's called like Gearheads now. Just going on those forums, looking at the noob section, the help section, and because I remember I'd be reading things and I'd be like, I don't even know what like MB compression is, or like all these acronyms, and then later I was like, okay, I think MB compression stands for multi-band compression, and then it's like, well, what does multi-band compression mean? And like all these people, it was such an uphill battle because when you're a working professional, like you use acronyms and stuff. You don't say the full words for things. You know, things get technical really fast. So for people who don't know any better, it's gonna be like it's like if I was not a doctor and I go into like a Harvard, level college course, and people are just throwing out these, vertebrae C14 and molecule A318, and I'm like, what the fuck is all this? I don't even have a starting point. So it's an uphill battle for sure, but I think now more than ever, it's been more accessible for new people. The industry has moved in a way such that it's more and more easy for people of relatively low experience to get started on doing their own stuff. Especially with the way AI has come. There's a lot of programs like Ozone, anything from Isotope, Universal Audio to an extent, but Waves, Steven Slate Digital, all of those big companies are coming out with plugins or updates to plugins that are utilizing like really advanced AI algorithms and making things super automated and simple compared to how they used to be. However, those tools are only useful insofar as you know what they're doing.
Yeah.
The simple answer, just do a lot of independent research and a lot of trial and error on your own.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resources on YouTube and things like that to help you get a quality audio interface, get quality plugins from Wave, Steven Slate Digital, Universal Audio, things like that. Get quality shit, don't skimp out, and you'll be all the better for it.
Yes, sir. We're running out of time, but where can people reach you at, Jack? Plug some of the information. I'll also put it in the description.
Okay. Let's see. So you can get me on Instagram. Like I said, nowadays things are pretty Army related because that's what I do as my day job.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm not going back into mixing. In fact, I just bought a new Apollo Twin X that I'm setting up, and I got some new Slate Digital headphones, so I actually will be able to start mixing remotely now in the near future. I'm in talks with a couple of reggaeton artists. I'm super into Spanish music nowadays, so that's kind of what I've been filling my mind with. But if you want to reach me, you can get me on Instagram at the Montezuma, which is TheMontyZuma. It's a play on Montezuma, obviously. I'm active on there. You can look up Jack Montgomery on Facebook if you want. Things should be relatively synced, and then you can also email me at mr6@gmail.com. These things may change.
Spelled SX.
SIXSA, so I'm sure you'll put that in the description. So,
yes, sir.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's some of the plans for the future, Jack? Are we gonna be working together?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'm sure you have lots of ideas that you have.
I got a lot of tracks, bro. I ain't gonna cap.
Yeah.
But you, Jack, what are you doing? What's your plans?
Well, the plans are realistically, like I said, it's not my day job anymore. The Army is my day job. It's extremely demanding, especially with all the shit that we got going on. However, that doesn't mean that I can't do remote services and mixing. So
so the schedule might change coming up.
Yeah, the schedule is definitely not like you can always hit me from 8 a.m. to 1500 on weekdays. It's now like, hey, you can discuss a song idea you have with me if you have everything you need.
You're like on call or something. What is that called?
We can talk about it, and I'll give you something in a week, or something like that. So right now it's very informal. That's just the nature of the beast with how busy I am. And plus, if I'm in the field, I may be literally gone for 2 weeks because I'm out getting shot in the woods. So so yeah, it's very sporadic and chaotic right now. But in the future, the far future, like in the next couple of years or so, I'll be setting up that full-fledged studio with all of my equipment back home that I still have.
Yes, sir.
And that's gonna be freaking Noah's Ark right there. So that's gonna be, if you're an artist and you release physical media like DVDs, CDs, anything, sign those. Sign your physical media and keep like a couple still in the packaging and sign it, because those might be worth something now in 10 years from now. So you can say, I got an original signed copy of this shit. Whether or not you become famous, it's insurance. Do it.
Yeah, to be honest, when I do all my notes now and stuff, I date my shit. I timestamp it because that is gonna be priceless. It's like I'm gonna be able to look back at it. I have
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs that I've written, and they're all dated, and they're all in one big fucking like series of files. So I can pull it up at any one time and be like, 300,000 words. Another tip is an engineer, take the money up front, because I hate to say it, but a lot of artists are freaking cheapskates, and they will fleece you any way they can. They'll be like, I'll come through, and they never come through. Or they'll be like, oh,
but I would fleece you, Jack. Come on.
Happening.
I'm that artist. Are you talking about me?
No, but you will encounter those people. They will gas you up to no end, and then they will never come through.
Listen, Jack, we're running out of time. This is Money Scheme Official, episode 5, and peace.
Yeah, everyone. Thanks.
Like how clear?
Perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine? I got some promo tracks. I'm about to register probably today, or get that paperwork started today. And